What's up, dude?
Hey, dude, how's it going?
How's it going? Welcome to the Vanguard live streams. Anyone that's new, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to smash that like button. It helps us in the algorithm, which obviously, our channel, along with many others, are fighting right now, up against that suppression of the YouTube and corporate media machine. So again, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, hit that notification bell as well, so you don't miss another live stream. Quickly before we get started, I'll shout out the patrons. Thanks so much to everyone supporting us on patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. You can click the link in the below to join our community for $10 a month. You can join us on live streams such as this one, but for just $1 a month, you can join our Patreon if you just want to be a member level patron and support the show. We appreciate everyone that is supporting. Again, it's a really good way to help an independent leftist show if you enjoy the hard work we're doing here at the Vanguard.
Yeah, and a free way is to hit that subscribe button and give the show a thumbs up. Like Gavin said, helps us in the algorithm. But what's up, everybody? This is another Vanguard live stream. I'm Zach.
I'm Gavin.
And I got another news day for you, right? Recently, we've kind of picked up the, consistency that we've been doing these live streams, basically doing them about on an every evening basis at this point. With the sporadic night, Gavin and I are tired and we just say, fuck it, let's have the night off. But I guess as good of a place as ever is to start off with, somebody who's not, who used to be a fixture of commentary on this show, has since been fading into the background in a way that I can't say I was necessarily have been happy about. But Bernie Sanders has gotten back to work calling out the oligarchs of America. And, it was refreshing to see it, for all the criticism that we lob often at Bernie Sanders for not doing everything that we'd want exactly how we'd like him to. Obviously, in our heart of hearts, we've both been tremendously inspired by Bernie Sanders. And it's good to see him. Keeping up the good fight.
Yeah, exactly. And Bernie Sanders, like you said, despite our disagreements with him, he does remain probably one of the best senators. And right here, he is calling out Bezos and Elon Musk. Again, this is not really a controversial statement to make, especially right now when so much wealth has been concentrated in the very upper echelons of our elite society. People like Musk and Bezos just completely enriching themselves essentially off of the coronavirus, or at least from surrounding circumstances. So Bernie just comes here with a totally normal tweet. He says, we are in a moment in American history where two guys, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, own more wealth than the bottom 40% of the country. That level of greed and inequality is not only immoral, it is unsustainable. And if you were paying attention to Bernie on the campaign trail when he ran for president in 2016 or 2020, again, this is not a new statement coming from Bernie. This is the kind of thing he would say all the time on the campaign trail, pointing out the really insane level of income and wealth inequality in this country. And the fact that people like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos can single-handedly, or between the two of them, own more wealth than 40% of an entire country. That is truly
the richest
insane.
Country in the world too. It's fucking astronomical, right? These two individuals. And also, we don't have any handy right now, but I'm sure you've all have seen the charts where you can look at the net worth of somebody like Elon Musk in February of 2020 and then look at it right now. Same with Jeff Bezos. I mean, the absolute, like, the compounding effects of their astronomical wealth are obviously immoral, but Bernie's correct to say unsustainable, right? That wealth is going to keep compounding. They're going to keep finding ways to vacuum up every last cent that the working poor has. And it's going to, eventually, I mean, it's already collapsed our entire society, right? Just go drive around what used to be called small town America, right? Middle America, right? It's completely gone. But the effects are going to be completely unavoidable as we continue down this road. But yeah, this is pretty run-of-the-mill stuff from Bernie Sanders. Nothing too crazy, but of course that doesn't stop.
And this was kind of just context because he put this out on March 18th. And again, it probably got the attention of Mr. Musk, who, actually, I guess this was a different tweet altogether. That was just context because, again, Bernie's kind of been calling out the oligarchs, like you said. But here, Bernie responds to an Elon Musk tweet where Musk tweets, "I am accumulating resources to help make life multi-planetary and extend the light of consciousness to the stars.
This is the kind of horse shit that makes me want to throw up and punch him in the face at the same time, right? Because essentially, like, I think he's genuinely so far up his own ass that he might believe this shit, right? Like, in his own fucking deluded mind, when he's like surrounded by his own bubble where everybody thinks he's like a genius and he's like constantly like, you know, like you can tell when you watch, like, my biggest takeaway from like that Joe Rogan podcast that he did was just like if I don't know, it felt very like almost performative to me. Like, he's a smart guy, like he's gonna go in there and try and like play the like troubled genius. Like,
it's so obvious.
I don't think people would like to be inside my mind. Like, oh
yeah, dude, his shtick is so fucking cringy, and you're absolutely right that it's performative, and you're absolutely right that he's a capitalist that's doing an act. If you watch his interviews and stuff, it is very obvious, at least in my opinion, that he is putting on that exact shtick where he is kind of trying to play like the quirky and weird and like, you know, troubled genius or whatever. It's so fucking annoying. I can't stand Elon Musk. But again, and it looks like Musk is responding here to a tweet from Clean Technica, and where they're spotlighting this Bernie tweet and calling it ridiculous. Even though, again, how like I'm really shocked that anyone can argue with the statement that it's unsustainable that 40% of the people in this country own less money than two extremely rich men. Again, that seems completely and entirely uncontroversial.
Which basically have their own income that's like the equivalent of like a sovereign country, right? Like these individuals, like, I mean, if you think about it, if you own more than 40% of the wealth of the entire United States to get combined, you have to have more wealth than entire countries.
Yeah, exactly. So again, Elon Musk here saying, I'm accumulating resources to help make life multiplanetary and extend the light of consciousness to the stars, which is pretty hilarious because, you know, he's trying to make life for himself and his buddies multiplanetary, but not, you know, the homeless man down the street or even, you know, the family that's living paycheck to paycheck. No, obviously those people are not going to be curried to Mars so that they can live out the rest of their lives while the rest of us burn, you know, from the effects of climate change or drown from the effects of climate change. Again, this is a.
Or what about the Bolivian people whose coup he mockingly supported?
And, Ryan Knight points that out here. And again, I'll just say too, really quickly, I'm not against, U.S. government funding space travel. I think NASA should exist. I certainly think that space should be explored. I think there's more. I'm in favor of, funding for scientific research. Absolutely. But that being said, I'm in favor of, robust government NASA type programs, not, private companies and people like Elon Musk enriching themselves to the tune of millions and billions of dollars by trying to privatize space. That's not something I'm interested in whatsoever.
The other thing about NASA that has to be addressed when we move it forward, because you're right, 100% it should be our national industry. That's, we should as a nation care about supporting science and all those.
The whole world should come together to do this. It shouldn't be a space race between different countries, because then it just becomes a escalatory military type thing. The space should not be intertwined with the military industrial complex like it currently is. The whole world should try to come together and unite to explore the cosmos, and not people like Elon Musk getting rich off of the privatization of space and the militarization of space.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that the United States has actually been pretty ambivalent as far as space technology has gone, and that's why somebody like Elon Musk has been able to sneak in here. So essentially, the business that Elon Musk created with SpaceX, that what actually makes him money, is that instead of having the United States astronauts get flown, as we'll say, I don't know the official fucking term for when you take a spacecraft somewhere, but essentially they were commuting to space with Russians. We were basically hitching a ride on their aircraft. And so what Elon Musk said was, I'll provide the spaceship that you and do the shuttling back and forth after the United States shuttered the space shuttle program. But the thing that I wanted to mention is that even if we do bring back NASA, one of the things that desperately has to change is the way that we get to space, right? Because it's so bad for the environment, the way that we currently do space travel. I mean, that's one. I mean, if you think about the way that a space shuttle functions, right? And obviously we don't use space shuttles anymore, but I don't know how the fuck our current rockets work.
Well, that's why Elon Musk is trying to make Tesla rockets that are funded with, or that are, fueled with electricity instead of gasoline. Why aren't you in favor of this innovation brought to us by capitalism, Zach?
Yeah, exactly.
Because also a bunch of people are talking about how apparently Elon Musk is like hawking Bitcoin now, which people have mixed feelings on. I think there's different interesting arguments for and against Bitcoin, but he's really hyping up this thing where you can now apparently buy Teslas with Bitcoins or whatever. So that's another development.
Dude, the Bitcoin thing is such a grift. It's like I like whatever people want to peddle Bitcoin. I like you have the right to, but it's 100% like this is like it's an asset, right? It's not a currency, and it's 100% a Ponzi scheme, right? The way that Bitcoin works is the more you hype the value of it, the more you sensationalize it, the more people buy into the idea of Bitcoin, the more value your Bitcoin now has. So of course, people who are invested in the crypto sphere are going to try and sell you like 1,000 ways where this cryptocurrency has value, but really it's all just, to use a Marxist term, it's all just fictitious, right? The capital is it's all just speculative,
exactly, kind of like the NFT bullshit.
Exactly. It's just like the NFTs, which are also terrible for the environment.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's ironic about Tesla being or promoting Bitcoin now is that Tesla, which is supposedly the environmentally response to gasoline and fossil fuels or whatever, Bitcoin is actually extremely bad for the environment. It uses an incredible amount of electricity to mine Bitcoin, which is something that not a lot of people know about. But if you ever look at just photos even of the equipment and necessary to mine Bitcoin, it's incredibly expensive as far and resource depleting when it comes to electricity and all that. So it's not, it has issues with it for sure. The one argument that I have heard in favor of cryptocurrency that kind of does appeal to me is that like, if you're one of those people that doesn't want your taxes like going towards the war machine or whatever, then like there are cryptocurrencies like Monero, which Aria DeMezzo told us about, which apparently like you can.
I've looked into Monero. Monero, it's a more, it's a even more covert, even more incognito way of hiding your transactions. But like at the end of the day, you cannot run your entire life off of Monero. It's just not going to be feasible for you. And also,
unless you live in the town that Aria DeMezzo does, because apparently they're all on Monero now in New Hampshire, which is weird. But ultimately I agree. Anyway, again, Elon Musk coming at Bernie Sanders because he's accumulating resources. Yeah, you sure are fucking accumulating resources, man. You really are accumulating a lot of fucking resources for just one individual. That is no lie there. Anyway, extend the light of consciousness to the stars.
It sounds like such fucking Silicon Valley horseshit, dude. Bullshit. This is like it is like this is right here. This one tweet is like late stage capitalism in like one little clip, right? Like this is
anyway. The to add on to the dog pile, another regular from Joe Rogan podcast, Mr. Jordan Peterson, who the last I heard of was in a Russian medical facility trying to recover from his benzo addiction, but apparently he's back.
He's back and ready to tell you how to live your life morally, Gavin.
Yeah, exactly. And he quote tweets Bernie Sanders here. Again, so Bernie responds here. Sorry, I left out a piece of the puzzle. Okay. Bernie responds and says, space travel is an exciting idea, but right now we need to focus on Earth and create a progressive tax system so that children don't go hungry, people are not homeless, and all Americans have healthcare. The level of inequality in America is obscene and a threat to our democracy. So again, coming in clutch with the truth right here. Again, I'm also excited about space travel, and I think the world should come together to try to explore the cosmos. But absolutely, while we have children going hungry and people dying on the streets and people dying without healthcare, it's obscene and immoral and just silly, honestly, to be thinking about spending our resources elsewhere when that violence is going on. So, once again, Bernie just coming in with some obvious logic and, it's I can't imagine, really arguing with this.
Yeah, exactly. And I, what we can move on to the Jordan Peterson tweet, because I think that's exactly right. So subtext, those who dare to be interested in the exploration of space are nowhere near as moral as those of us who care so much for the poor. If you are going to choose space exploration or people who are dying from hunger, that's an immoral decision. That's a self-serving decision. That is as black and white as it can be. And this is so laughable from a guy that pretends to preach morality. Like, it's so obvious that this guy is nothing but the biggest kind of shill. I mean, he's nothing but a voice for like right wing donors to it's so ridiculous, right? Like I haven't ever looked into this, but I would love to see where Jordan Peterson gets a lot of his funding from, because like I don't know. And also he does have like the fact of the matter has to be said, like he does have an audience base, but it's ridiculous to me that audience base exists. It's so delusional.
It blows my mind that people still listen to what this guy has to say, because again, when he was first out there spreading his bullshit and proffering his idiocy, he was he was basically just a professor and a public intellectual. So I guess you could look at him and take him seriously if you wanted to, but now after you publish a book,
you've heard anything come out of his mouth.
Well, obviously, yeah, but there's a lot of people out there that are easily tricked by con men that sound smart. Hence True. The entire right wing media industry. But what I'm getting at is he wrote a book called 12 Rules for Life and went around preaching about how you need to clean up your room and get to work and face your responsibilities head on and don't be lazy and all this bullshit. Meanwhile, unknowingly to his fans and to the public, he's literally dealing with his own issues by stuffing his mouth full of benzos every day, thoroughly addicted to a drug to cope with his own fucking issues. Again, while he's meanwhile making millions of dollars telling people that they need to clean up their act and,
which is the real issue, right? If you want to stuff your mouth full of benzos, like, I guess that's your fucking business. But like doing that while preening to people about how they and not only that, but like admonishing the people who actually have been impacted by things like the opioid crisis, basically boiling it down to like an issue of will. Yeah. And like I said, I'm not like familiar with Jordan Peterson, so I don't want to paint with a broad brush. So I guess I'll just try and.
He's garbage, dude. You don't need to watch your words.
I remember that he did the thing where he only ate meat and salt, and that did get to my my ears. But anyway, it's so ridiculous because to me this is obvious that, of course, like, we need to take care of everybody on Earth and our own fucking planet before we can even consider moving on to another one. And it's so obvious also, if you want to be like a head scratcher and be like, oh, I want to like philosophy. Obviously, if we don't change our nature, if we don't change our behavior, if we don't change the way we structure our society, we're just going to go through the next planet that we settle on, right? We'll constantly be fulfill, like, chasing the dragon, so to speak. Yeah. Right? We'll be burning up all of our resources and then constantly in search for that greater consciousness from the next planet. I don't know.
Yeah, no, exactly. And when it comes to benzos too, since you were mentioning, or since we mentioned that, I agree. It's none of our business, whether or not he's taking benzos, and I don't judge people that do any drug. That being said, benzos are incredibly addictive, and there is a responsible way to use drugs and an irresponsible way to use drugs. And I personally know people that have suffered from addiction to drugs like Xanax and Klonopin. So I do think it's incredibly ironic for him to be, irresponsibly using those drugs to cope with his own issues in his own life. Meanwhile, he's telling people to take a jog and eat steak and do whatever and buy his book, and then that's what they need to do
anything but question the actual system that we live in, which is my beef with all these fuckers, right? Because, and look, here's the thing, and I've talked to I'm sure we've talked about this on the show and off air as well, because here is the deal with these kind of guys, and it's the Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, it's the same formula, right? These people, so many people right now, they lack direction, they lack role models, and their life is so thoroughly fucked. And I'll be honest, right? I've been, one of those people who was just like looking around like, holy shit, like my life is fucked, I'm going to be a failure. And you can see how the argument that no, all you have to do is conquer your inner bitch and wake up at 4:30 in the morning and make your bed and go get after it. And, do all of these things. And then, somehow you're going to become Joe Rogan with $100 million and everything's going to be peachy keen, right? That's a good story. Yeah. And when you have somebody who's living that story, right? Because that's the most difficult part about, kind of challenging people's understanding of capitalism, right? Because yes, it's true that it is possible, right, to win the lottery. It's also possible to, start the world's most popular podcast and make a shit ton of money doing it and all of those things. And yeah, that debate did expose Jordan Peterson, but but the broader point is that they're filling a real void, right? Which is that people are confused and they don't have any direction, and there is no opportunity for them that they feel like. And so these people are providing them with concrete steps that they can do to, if they don't challenge anything, if they only focus on themselves, then they can do it, and they're just going to run harder. And it's like, Animal Farm. I can't remember the name of the horse in Animal Farm, but his motto is just, I will work harder. I will work harder.
Isn't it Boxer?
Boxer. That's exactly what it was. Yeah. And his motto was, I will work harder. Right. And people are susceptible to that brain and that type of thinking. Right. That's and I think that's why somebody like Jordan Peterson is so popular. Same with somebody like Joe Rogan. Yeah. And so I think one of the things that we have to do when we're reflecting on this is think about what's the way that we can tell the real story in a way that makes it palatable for people and easy for them to digest. And yeah,
that's so true. And you're absolutely right that Jordan Peterson and Joe Rogan, who we've even defended on this show at times, he does that a lot too, especially recently with COVID being like, well, all you need to do is like get healthy, and basically implying that people who are actually being affected by COVID, it's their fault for not, again, eating a raw food diet and only eating keto and only eating organic elk that they shot with their own crossbow. You know what I'm saying? Like, or got enough vitamin D or whatever the fuck. Like, are you not going to even probe into the reason why we have a massive amount of this country who is not in good health? Obviously America is one of the most unhealthy countries in the world, but you can look at all those people and blame them for being unhealthy, or you can look at the state of our food deserts and the fact that, the vast majority of these people shop from places like Walmart. And if you've ever been to a Walmart, that there's not exactly a lot of appealing, healthy looking food there. The produce section doesn't really look very fresh. And you're surrounded by sugary, processed garbage, essentially. And kids are growing up with their entire diets being, conformed around those foods. So of course it's in their biological code essentially to eat that way. Again, no underlying probing into or attempt to educate or disconstruct that reality. Instead, it's just pointing fingers and being like, well, why can't you afford kale smoothies, kombucha, and elk meat for dinner like I can?
It's not even that. He won't even go so far as to say, why can't you afford it? The question stops as, why won't these sugar addicted people put their why do they keep putting their tongue pleasure, their mouth pleasure, which is something that Joe Rogan used to say all the time. It's like, you're literally putting your mouth pleasure above your health. And I'm like, no, dude. Like, people are poor in this country. You don't understand. You're so fucking far from being poor that you're like, and then people are like, really? Because you can go into Whole Foods and get a thing of broccoli for like $3. And it's like, shut the fuck up. You are not feeding a family a fucking thing of like, just go fuck yourself, right? You like, don't like,
so
like,
true.
And so, and just to finish up this, like, one other thing really quickly is that, the poverty element is so important because it's also youth poverty, right? And it's, you got to think about families, right? So today I got the mail, right? I was walking my dog and I got the mail, and everybody gets like junk mail, right? You get like ads and shit in the mail if you get the mail. I always get shit from like neighboring like fast food restaurants that are trying to get me to eat there, and they'll have like coupons, and there's like a thing that I get every time, and it's always from like Burger King, and I'm like, I'm never gonna eat at Burger King, but I always get like a shit ton of their coupons, and it'll be like 3 Whoppers, 3 cheeseburgers, and 3 orders of fries for $12. And you're like, if you're a poor family and you're like struggling to feed your family, and you're like, oh, I am a single parent with 2 children and I can feed everybody for $12, like you like, that is that is really like inexpensive.
Yeah. And also I'll just say on the broccoli point, I was a vegan for a couple months. I've been a vegetarian for a lot of my life, but I was vegan for a while. And I will say that vegetables and fruits, while extremely healthy, they're not very filling. You can eat a fucking entire bowl of, fruits and vegetables, and it's really good for you, but it is hard to sustain yourself. You have to constantly be eating, essentially, if you are going to be eating like a fruit and vegetable based diet, and not a lot of carbs, for example, which do just kind of give you that like filler. So yeah, it's it's hard to just, it's easy to just say, well, why don't you just go to Whole Foods and pick up a $3.99 bag of broccoli and just eat that? Then you'll be healthy. But, again, like you said, especially if you have a family, it's not really usually that simple at all.
The other thing that I want to talk about, because like, okay, yes, that's true. You can feed your family for less than $12, but like at the end of the day, it's like, okay, do you want to eat rice and beans like every single fucking day? Like that, come on, that's just like an unsustainable way to live your life. Like point taken, like you're not going to starve if you live off of rice and beans, but like we have to consider the cultural pressures that you just have when you exist as a human being in this country.
And also like we shouldn't be forcing like all the peasants to just eat fucking gruel while everyone else gets steak and wine. Like this is not, what the fuck? Come on.
Yeah, dude, exactly. So what I think essentially is that it just comes from being completely removed and disconnected, right? And not having a real understanding. And I think the other part of it is a little bit of a lack of empathy, right? Like there is definitely part of it is a lack of want to understand. Feed your children.
But yeah, certainly a bit of an interesting Twitter spat, and it is nice to see Bernie getting in there and kind of flexing his muscle and making some based points on Twitter. Again, obviously we can talk about how maybe he's tweeting more than actually, standing up to the Democratic leadership, for example. And it'd be great if he really leveraged his, power as a senator in the same way that Joe Manchin has in order to get concessions on legislation. So certainly, Bernie could be doing more. And I don't really appreciate the way he kind of gave cover, so to speak, to Biden when he, dropped $15 an hour on the latest bill.
He should have been tweeting out clips of Biden promising him and being like, this is an outrage. We have to force Joe Biden to do better. I mean, even in like polite Bernie language, he could have held Joe's feet to the fire and been like, Joe Biden gave us this promise and we're going to make him keep it. Like, something like that, where it's like, oh, yes, Joe literally made this promise. And of course the media would still attack him, be like, Bernie hates the Democrats. Nothing's ever good enough for Bernie. He's a crazy old man. He wants everything for free and everything like that. But at the end of the day, I think people would still understand him and understand where he's coming from and feel like he was fighting for them. And I think people, and the line is, and I think Ro Khanna said this explicitly, and, obviously Ro Khanna, he's not a socialist, but, he does flirt with the, a lot of the progressive ideas that you and I support. So we kind of expect more from him than the typical congressperson. But even he was like, I'm not going to risk anything that would hold up this bill. This bill is too important. And it's just like, okay, guys, if you're never going to risk anything, if you're never going to hold out, you're never going to exercise any power. You're just there to, be good looking and a smooth talker, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Still wanted to spotlight that. And it's also funny because, we're in such a bubble, I guess you would call it, that, even Bernie Sanders is a little bit controversial. Is he left enough? But then you're reminded when you go on Twitter and look at the people like Jordan Peterson and Elon Musk, and to them, you're reminded that Bernie still is that radical communist, personification of proletarian rage to those elitists. So it's always a reminder, that outside of our very, very leftist bubble, Bernie still definitely is looked at as a radical. He's still definitely looked at by the capitalist class as a threat. And that's why they tried everything to stop him and ultimately did stop him in the nominating process. And, that's something that needs to be said.
All it took was one phone call from Obama.
Exactly. Yeah. All it took was one phone call and also Jim Clyburn. So, we've talked about that a lot, but I do think it's worth saying is they wouldn't have stopped him if he wasn't a legitimate threat to them. So while I agree, there's lots of, valid criticisms of Bernie and his strategy, especially as of late, post Joe Biden being elected. I do think it's
2016, I think really.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair. Sure. But like I said, I do think it's worth saying that if he wasn't a threat to the oligarchy, to the political establishment, then they wouldn't have stopped him and done everything they could have to try to stop him. So yeah. Anyway, that's an interesting story to cover. And I guess that's a good segue into some interesting other Twitter drama that I saw today. This was super weird and unexpected, and I definitely have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I did not see this and know what was going down, so I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, that's no problem. You can just give any thoughts that you have. But basically, Liam O'Mara, who's actually a friend of our show and repeated guest, he's been on our program twice now. Once when he was running for Congress for the 2020 cycle, and again more recently when he declared his candidacy for the 2022 cycle. He's running for Congress in California, I believe maybe like the 42nd district or something like that. There's a lot of districts in California, so it's hard to remember. But anyway, he's a really good populist left Democratic candidate. He does identify as a populist left, so I mean he's definitely welcome on our show. And he's a history professor, just genuinely a really good candidate, a based lefty, a working class candidate. Again, we urge you to check out his campaign and support him, and check out our interviews as well. I really have enjoyed our conversations with Liam. Anyway, to give some context, Candace Owens tweeted this out, and I'll pull this up. Candace Owens, of course, notorious right-wing grifter. She left the left a couple years ago, and ever since has just been the token woman of color that the right wing basically, has tell other people of color that it's in their best interest to support the GOP, which of course is laughable and counterproductive to any, community that's marginalized, certainly, and all communities except for the elite wealthy ones. Anyway, Candace Owens tweeted out, the number one violent offenders against Black people are other Black people. The number one violent offenders against Asian Americans are also Black people. But both hashtag Black Lives Matter and hashtag Asian Lives Matter are campaigns dedicated to stomping out white supremacy because clown world. So basically making fun of the entire Black Lives Matter and Asian Lives Matter movement, and basically doing what we were talking about yesterday while discussing Hate Inc., which is taking statistics that might technically be true, but then blowing them up without any context and omitting other key information to make an incredibly racist point and to apologize for genuine white supremacists and racist sentiment in this country. Again, it's impossible to deny the history of racism in this country, which has affected our population and which continues to affect, marginalized communities of color, which suffer from, lack of generational wealth and systemic oppression, which has been reinforced through years of Jim Crow and also, the crime bill, which has been called the new Jim Crow. Obviously, the oppression of Black people continues in this country. It's never stopped. And again, to completely omit context such as that and the over-policed areas that, education is tied to housing income or tax income, for example. So, people are growing up in communities without the same resources economically, educationally, etc. Again, completely omitting those facts to apologize for racism, for white racism and white supremacy in America. So, this is just a classic Candace Owens tweet, a completely disingenuous and offensive statement, frankly. And I thought it was, totally fair for Liam O'Mara to call that out. And he did so in the form of this response. He tweeted this picture of it looks like a napkin that looks like a Klan hood. So I thought this was hilarious because not only is it look like a Klan hood, but it's also a piece of trash. So it kind of implying that she's a racist piece of trash, which she is. So again, nothing wrong with this tweet. Great response to a vitriolic and disgusting.
I may actually disagree with you slightly actually on this. I think we have a slightly different take on this. My take on this isn't that like Liam is like some like racist, but I'm going to be real and say that I don't love this tweet. I think there's something I don't love the idea of using Klan iconography to come after an African American woman. I just don't.
Candace Owens is quite literally a paid spokesperson for the Republican Party, which has no interest in the Black community and which quite literally has apologized for literal Klansmen and included them within their party.
Those things are all true. And I don't like it. I don't love it.
I mean, I personally, I think it's completely appropriate. Candace Owens and her ilk are the first people to point at others and accuse them of cancel culture and accuse them of pulling the race card, for example. Someone like Candace Owens would easily point towards another Black person who's crying racism accurately, mind you, and say, why are you pulling the race card? This has nothing to do with race. Just like in her tweet that this is a response to, she basically underplays racism at every point. Now she's selectively using the charge to accuse Liam of being a racist himself. So it's a misapplication of racism when every other time racism rears its head, Candace Owens is the first to apologize or deny it. She's basically selectively charging someone with something that she undercuts and undermines at every other instance. You'll see here that apparently the tweet was removed. Well, I guess maybe it wasn't. I guess it wasn't removed. Either way, Liam O'Mara deleted his account after she incited her mob of supporters on him. And again, if Candace Owens was a genuine actor, someone who was a person of color who was, disaffected by the way that the Democratic Party has treated the Black community, which is completely valid. Again, the crime bill, huge example of that, elevating figures like Joe Biden. It's disgusting. And I would never vote for a Democrat. I don't vote for Democrats, but if I was a Black person, I certainly would not associate with the Democrats. So, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. And again, if Candace Owens was a good faith actor that was coming out and saying, I can't vote for Democrats, and maybe even genuinely expressing some curiosity or interest in the GOP, that would be one thing. However, like I said, she's a paid spokesperson, a paid propagandist that's intentionally misinforming people on the margins of our society and redirecting their frustration with our system and their pain into the Republican Party. Again, she's the kind of person that will, happily accuse someone else of quote unquote pulling the race card.
I'm not coming to the defense of Candace Owens. All I'm saying is that I don't love this tweet, and I don't love I think that you can analyze that in a vacuum and say that, no, I don't think, and you're right, I don't think that Candace Owens is a good person. And I think that she has, done all of the things that you just, correctly identified that she has done. But I still think that this is clumsy at best. I wouldn't have made my point in this way if I was coming after Candace Owens. I think with the extreme history of violence that the Ku Klux Klan, the terror that the Ku Klux Klan has imposed on the Black community, I personally, I feel like using that kind of imagery to make your point, I think that one, like I said, I don't think that was his intention about it, but I think you're opening the door to something that, just completely takes away from the point that he could have correctly made in another way.
I mean, I think that's fair enough, but I mean, in that sense, can you not joke about the U.S. military because of the terrorism that they inflict abroad?
I think that the specific historical context, and I get that a lot of people, in the from my view and the way that I'm approaching this, I just don't think that you can remove the context specific, that this is a white man sending a Black woman what is very obviously supposed to be a Klan hood. So I just think if you put that in a vacuum and you acknowledge that, then yeah, I don't think that's a great move. I don't think that that's a great way to present any point, especially given America's history. So
I actually think it's a great way to make this point. It's a visual way. It's a funny way. It's a way that people can immediately understand and put together.
I disagree. I disagree.
She's literally using the same tactics that violent white supremacists have historically used to justify white supremacy. I don't understand how that's not Klansman-esque.
Okay, I just think that it's a bridge too far, and I think it's inappropriate, and I don't think it was a good move. I don't think that it's acceptable to use that kind of iconography as a way of making a clear, good point. That's not a point that I would make, and no, I think it's clumsy, and I didn't like it. I don't know what else to say about it. We disagree on this.
That's fair. We may disagree. Again, if this was someone who was not Candace Owens, who was someone I did think was a good faith actor, then I would probably, agree with you more or less. However, like I said, Candace Owens is the kind of person who will turn on anyone who's an actual victim of racism and say, why are you pulling the race card? She will do that over and over again and deny, underplay, and undermine the real reality of white supremacy, racism, let alone imperialism and all that. So now for her to selectively pull this, and say,
yeah, it doesn't reflect anything good on Candace Owens. That doesn't, 100%, it doesn't. And yeah, I think that she's being incredibly selective and hypocritical, and she has made the case against countless people who were justifiably, giving examples of their racist experiences. I don't disagree with any of that. I just think that I think it was a clumsy move from Liam. And I wouldn't have tweeted that myself.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, that's a fair opinion. I guess that I just generally think that, when you're pointing out when you're pointing out the fact that someone is clearly a propagandist for what could be described accurately as a white supremacist movement, which is the modern day GOP. I don't think you're necessarily, above that kind of criticism or comparison. It's just simply, I just don't give a shit.
I don't think that she's above that kind of criticism at all. I think that my only point was that if I think that, and it's not that I don't think it's fair for somebody like Liam to call out, Candace Owens for what is obviously like her role in perpetuating systemic racism. My problem was the way that he presented it. I think that it's I didn't like it. I got a bad feeling when I saw it, and that's all I can say, right? Like, I'm not trying to like out woke anybody. Like, I'm just being honest. Like, I didn't love that, and that's all. I don't think that Liam's like a bad guy. I don't think that he was like trying to like terrorize Candace Owens. I think that he probably feels really guilty. That's why he deleted his whole fucking Twitter. Like, I'm just saying, I didn't love the tweet. I thought it was probably a bad idea.
I guess that's fair, but to me, I guess I would have to side with the response that's just like, I don't know. Is it really? Do we really want to live in? I don't know. I guess I'll shut up. I don't want to.
No, you don't have to shut up. Like, I'm not trying to finger wag you. I'm just saying that I disagree with with Liam on that one.
Yeah, I just feel like if we live in a society where people have to delete their Twitter account for making what could be considered a clumsy joke after you're accurately pointing out a proponent of white supremacy, and you're pointing that fact out, and then you feel so, that's
something that we could definitely have a discussion about for sure. I think that we should live in a society where people are receptive to Liam being like, holy shit, guys, like, I apologize.
Well, not just that,
reaction
not
that
just
way.
that, but it's a censorious culture, and it ends up with people like Candace Owens getting away with saying whatever vitriolic bullshit they want, and like I said, completely getting away with it. Where people with no platform and no power, like Liam O'Mara, having to delete their accounts because they feel that they've been overrun by this mob of people demanding whatever, even though those people would defend Candace Owens for making far more racist statements. Again, the tweet that he was responding to itself was far more racist than his response, at least in my opinion. Would you argue with that?
No. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, right. Like, more or less racist. Like, I don't know if I'm like necessarily like positioned to qualify that. Both one statement I think was intentionally propagating and trying to push forward racist ideology. No question. Trying to promote the system of ideology or white supremacist. I'm fucking up my words right now. So, what it was doing, if we're talking about the Candace Owens tweet, it was intentionally pushing a narrative that was destructive. What I think was happening in the tweet from Liam is that he was using I don't know. He was like, people aren't going to like this. I don't care. I think he was drawing on a point in history that is, whether you like it or not, was built on white men terrorizing black men and women. And I just don't think it's necessarily appropriate to make your point to a black woman by, having a napkin that looks like a hood that represented the exact same people that just 100 years ago or less were used to, hang people from trees.
And those people still exist, and they're still downplaying the Black Lives Matter movement and trying to smear it as a bunch of clowns that don't actually care about racism. That's the point Liam's making.
Right, and that's why I don't think that I think that the way that he made his point was clumsy. I don't disagree that he was able to make a point that could have been illustrated effectively. But he didn't tweet at her and say like, you are doing this, and this. Like, it was it was supposed to be funny. And I just think that sometimes when you try and make a joke, like, you're like, oof, like, that was like, that one didn't land, man. I'm sorry. Like, that for me, that like crossed the line, and I was like, I didn't like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I guess I grew up on South Park, so that kind of stuff just doesn't really like hit with me the same way it does you. I'm not like super triggered by seeing that kind of shit. But
I mean, I don't want, like, don't call me triggered. Like, what the fuck? Like,
I'm not calling you triggered, bro. Chill.
That's what you just said. I'm not triggered by things like
when
that.
I see shit like that, because everyone else on Twitter wants to freak out about it, and I'm trying to remain calm and have an honest analysis of this, which is that it's.
I'm also trying to have an honest analysis of this.
I'm not saying you're not, bro. I'm not saying you're not. It's all good.
I'm just asking what you were implying then.
That a lot of people now in our current society see something like that and they want to take the high road. They want to be virtuous and say, I'm against this and not for it. When I honestly believe, maybe 5 years ago, people would have saw something like that and said damn straight and retweeted it without thinking twice. And again, we can have a debate about how certain things are good that our culture is adjusted to, but overall, I do think this is indicative of the censorious culture that we call out all the time. I mean, we talk about big tech censorship. This is an example of that. People feel like they can't even call out an actual racist by making a joke because they're going to be called racist themselves.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily an example of big tech censorship. And I also think that this gets into the line of, at what point do you think people just have a right to call somebody out because they disagree with them, right? If in a public platform, if we did have what is truly a public platform and a public square for our social media platforms, then there would be room for people to get ratioed, and there would be people who are constantly out there telling you to do all of these things, and as long as they're not telling you to participate in a crime or physical harm, then they would be allowed to say those things, which is another thing that we constantly advocate for on the Vanguard. So I 100% heed your point that you're right, that there are a lot of people who may be jumping on this as a quick way to gain some brownie points. But personally, if I'm giving my honest assessment of this, I think that Liam is probably a great guy, and he's meant nothing harmful by this tweet. But no, I don't love the tweet, and no, I think it's a bad idea, and I wouldn't have tweeted that, and the joke didn't land for me. It's kind of like when Dave Chappelle was making all those trans jokes. Like, I didn't like them. I don't think that he should be canceled, but like,
I mean, I agree with that, but in that case, he was punching down. Again, Liam was basically pointing out someone who has made an entire industry off of making propaganda for white supremacist Republicans, pointing out that that person in and of themselves is racist. I don't find that to be I don't think calling out someone for being racist is racist, but
it wasn't. But I think that he used inappropriate iconography to make his point, and people can be like, oh, that's pro censorship, and that's fine. But I didn't like it. It's the same way that's
fair. So it basically comes down to you didn't like the iconography and think it was insensitive, and I thought that it was a fair way to make a point in a way that was bold and brash, and admittedly a little bit, eye-catching. Obviously, it's not like it. I'm not saying it was totally polite. That's not the argument I'm making at all.
Yeah, 100%. It like crossed a line for me that it didn't cross for you, and that's fine. It would be like I mean, I can think of examples where it would cross the line for both of us, and that now I'm not trying to like insinuate anything because I disagree with you about this. I'm just saying, for me personally,
I mean, there's honestly not a lot of examples I can think of that would cross the line to the point where I think they would be worthy of censorship or whatever. At least in this context, again, when you're taking like calling out Candace Owens.
What if he used the N-word?
Okay, well, yeah, obviously that's
what I'm saying, though. That's what I'm saying. So it's like, for me, I think that you're like almost walking that line.
But that's different because, again, that's using a racial slur against someone instead of pointing out that someone is being racist themselves. That's a different thing. Like it's not just completely analogous.
Yeah, it's not completely analogous. You're right. That's why, like I said, we wouldn't probably be having this discussion if Liam O'Mara had used that. But I just think that the iconography is so steeped in that.
What about David Clark? What about David Clark, the sheriff? Do you not think it would be appropriate to call him a Klansman?
I don't know who David Clark is off the top of my head.
Sheriff in Milwaukee, brutal, racist, propagandistic, disgusting sheriff that single-handedly responsible for the treatment and mistreatment of more prisoners than probably anyone but Joe Arpaio. He also goes on places like Fox News and PragerU constantly to spread propaganda about how black people are inherently evil and violent.
I think I mean, I don't know if this is like, my point is that I don't like the idea of a white guy using this to, I don't know, is he a black guy? Like, no, I don't like that then.
David Clark is black, yeah. And also, I'm not 100% sure of this, but I actually don't know if Liam O'Mara is a completely white guy. I think he might be, in some sense, a person of color himself.
But yeah, non-black person though. This is I don't know. Like, and yeah, the racial politics. Like, people want to be like, oh, like it shouldn't matter, but I think it does in this instance.
That is not my argument at all.
No, I'm not addressing you, Gavin. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that I just think that yeah, for me, like, that's all I'm trying to say, I guess. Like, I mean, I don't know. I think this is one of those like instances, right, where like, I've had disagreements on the podcast before. Like, I voted for Joe Biden, like you didn't. Like, I just feel like this is one of those things where I like. Yeah. I understand like how you're thinking about this. Like, I would like I think you understand how I'm thinking about this. We just kind of arrive at a different outcome.
I just genuinely, and I mean this sincerely, and I'm not trying to sound like a right winger, but I do not want to live in a culture where people look at that and point the finger, and Liam O'Mara is the one that's a racist and has to delete his account, but Candace Owens gets to call him a racist and continue proffering off of actual racism and propagandistic promotion of the GOP. Call me crazy.
No, I'm not calling you crazy, and I didn't say that Liam should delete his Twitter account at all. I don't think that he should have deleted his Twitter account. I just think that, if anything, if he would have, of his own volition, deleted the tweet, that would have been his own decision. If he'd been like, fuck, I didn't mean that the way it is. I mean, like, everybody has like I mean, I'm not saying that I've tweeted like a claim. Everybody like has said shit, and then you're like, oh, I don't like the way that sounded.
Fair.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that. Like, you
Fair.
know, like I'll even like be like completely open and vulnerable about something that I did to be like, I'm not trying to preen, right? Like I remember the other, like this would happen like a few months ago. I think I told you this story where I was like smoking like a bowl with some of my friends, and I was like, oh yeah, chief that shit down. And somebody looked at me and they were like, you know, that term is like hella like racist and slanderous towards Native Americans. And I was like, what? And they were like, that's where it comes from. It's like making fun of Native American people for smoking. And I was like, that's interesting. I won't use that term to describe this anymore because I don't know the history of that. And like, that's just like, you know, and had somebody like taken that out of context and, you know, blown it up all over Twitter and be like, Zach Polston hates like Native American people. Like that would suck. And you know, so I'm not trying to be like, oh, genuine mistakes never happen. Like, of course. But at the end of the day, I just thought it was a clumsy way of making a point that could have been made really well.
Yeah. And that's maybe fair. I guess the way I think the reason why I disagree is because I think sometimes you have to, again, ruffle some feathers to make a point that is going to be even heard at all, especially if you are someone without a platform and you're trying to make a point against someone that has a literal massive platform that's not even entirely organic. Again, Candace Owens, like a lot of people in her, sector of the right-wing media are propped up by big oil, big business. These are people that are truly, influx of Coke money, for example, is propping these kind of commentators up again to reinforce and spread propaganda about as austerity, economic libertarianism, imperialism, the fossil fuel industry, et cetera. Again, Candace Owens is the one that went on JRE and literally argued that climate change didn't exist. So again, maybe if this was someone else, again, obviously, I'm not saying that we should be tweeting racist iconography of Black women, not at all. And again, if this was someone else, maybe I would feel differently. And I guess maybe I'm just struggling to separate what I do know the reality to be about this truly insidious and bad faith actor who, again, has made a literal industry out of spreading and apologizing for genuine racism and policies of people that are beyond, forgiveness, in my opinion. So it's an interesting discussion for have. And, certainly lots of opinions. Obviously, I'm a white dude, you're a white dude, so probably not even the most qualified people to be talking about this necessarily, but it's certainly an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I don't want to make this clip into me going to bat for Candace Owens because I think she's completely odious and a bad faith actor. But yeah, there is a more lighthearted story at the end of the tunnel, unless you had a final point to make on.
No, I'm good.
On Liam and Candace, but holy shit, I always forget until something happens that there is still like royalty in England.
Fucking crazy.
Does that like not blow your mind that they are not like pissed off? I mean, there are a lot of like they could be like, it doesn't blow your mind that they're not pissed off that other people are fucking about to be homeless.
And it's not just it's not just in England either. Technically, the Queen is like the Queen of Canada and like the entire quote unquote Commonwealth to the extent that it still exists. Like technically, she's the queen of an entire fucking empire still. It's wild.
I don't know about that. Tell me more about. Is that why she's on the money in Canada?
Yeah, no, straight up. Technically, the Queen is the queen of the entire Commonwealth, and I believe that even includes Australia. I don't know, but it's all pretty much ceremonial. It's not like she's determining their policy or whatever. But it really is crazy.
All that free money for her bloodline, though. That's what's fucked up. Like
it's just crazy to the extent which the monarchy, which literally, very literally, is a artifact of colonialism and all that, is still propped up, and not just propped up, but respected and defended by people like fucking Piers Morgan, fucking asshole. They got fired from Good Morning Britain, or that left Good Morning Britain, or whatever it was called. So yeah, it really does blow my mind. Like you said, just reminding myself that, this is still going on. There's a fucking monarchy being upheld in the UK.
Yeah, dude, it's fucking nuts, right? And what better way to join forces than the monarchy across the pond coming to join the United States monarchy, which we call Silicon Valley, right? Like, so anyway, Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, which Gavin and I actually Googled before this because I had no idea what the fuck a duke was. So the duke is just like the highest like male in the certain like bloodline for it's like a catch-all term for male royalty. If you're like a male of a certain position in the royal family, you can use the term Duke to describe them. I almost said Dutch. That's not the right word. Duke to describe them. So anyway, this dude is going to be working on a San Francisco-based company focused on mental health. Let's get the description of this company because it's fucking hilarious. It's called Better Up, and it brings together world-class coaching, AI technology, and behavioral science experts to help people live more meaningful, vibrant lives with greater clarity, purpose, and passion, the company says on its website. That's fucking hilarious because those are all a bunch of like nonsense words that people who have like inflated net worths can go sit and use your fucking startup to feel better about themselves and stroke their own egos and feel like they're saving the world while they're fucking actually just doing accounting for some fucking venture capital fund.
Yeah, this is such a like gross but also kind of expected story. And come, like, spare me the fucking tears, guys. People acting like, oh, these Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are like, I mean, I'm sure they experienced like mistreatment from the, other royals or whatever, but like, I'm not going to shed a fucking tear for these elitist swine that are now, basically they left the royal family so they could go make a bunch of money elsewhere. Cause if you're still a member of the royal family, you can't like have a Netflix deal, for example, cause it's, considering like tarnishing to the traditions and history of the monarchy. So, they really left for that reason. And I don't want to really hear much of anything else. I think it's kind of ridiculous, the amount of cultural like weeping and moaning we've all done over these two fuckers. Like, I spare me your fucking tears. I really don't care about these obscenely rich and privileged people that represent the epitome of the opposite of meritocracy, if you think about it, especially with Prince Harry, just being born into a literal monarchy. If I was born into a literal fucking monarchy, I would probably spend my entire life trying to be a, anti-monarchy advocate, redistribute the fucking wealth that goes into sustaining these people's opulent lifestyles into the people that are on the streets and starving, living to paycheck to paycheck. It's disgusting. And look at this. I Googled Prince Harry. Look at the shit. Look at the top 3 stories that come up. Prince Harry joins the Aspen Institute's fight against misinformation. So, red flag right there. Second one up. Prince Harry is taking on a new job title, Chief Impact Officer at Better Up. Disgusting. Impact Officer. Imagine if that was your fucking job title. And then the third one, new Lifetime movie will detail Harry and Meghan's exit from the royal family. So now they're going to make even more money on a dramatized fucking Lifetime original movie. This just is the most, this makes me want to throw up. Everything
it's roofing, man. It's the government. It's like, it's fucking hilarious that people even pay attention to this, right? Like, who the fuck cares about this guy? I mean, like, it's exciting though, and people like, it's just like, it's the exact kind of thing that like the Silicon Valley crowd of like San Francisco tech people would like be really into, and like, like they're sheltering these people away from like the terrible old guard, and like, oh, these people are so like oppressive in the monarchy, like come join our world of fucking meritocracy in Silicon Valley, right? Which is obviously like a horse shit lie. It's all built off of startup money and venture capital funds and fucking crazy. Okay, I can't tell people where I work because I have a fucking job that I have to keep because we obviously don't make enough money doing the Vanguard because we don't take any advertisements and we're completely listener funded. But I will just say something abstractly fucking crazy that's going on right now. It's just like the whole like shift, but like the like whether or not to go back to like the office ever, or like whether or not to like let people move permanently, like staying outside of I guess the office. I don't know what, like wherever the fuck people work, right? Not everybody, but whoever works remotely now. But the lack of control that can be had over the workforce is something that I think people are really stressing about. That's a little bit of a side tangent, but
yeah, no, that's fair. But yeah, ultimately, I just think this story is so indicative of the, like I said, these people are now just going on a media tour acting like they've been oppressed by their fellow royals, and now they're now they're out here in America trying to make a living for themselves, just like the fucking pioneers or something.
They're after the American dream, Gavin.
Yeah, it's so gross when again they're really just lining up for Netflix and Spotify deals and all these other companies which are treating their artists like shit, stuff like that. So it's really gross. It's really gross. This again, these people, I don't even know. Did Meghan Markle, did she used to be like an actress or something? I never really knew who she was. Everyone just started talking about her.
Let me look really quick.
I genuinely have no idea.
I don't know any of these people, right? I only know Prince Andrew for bad reasons.
Right.
She's the Duchess of Sussex. Okay, let's see. She was an actress. Yeah, she was in. She's actually been in a movie I've seen. She was in that movie Robert Pattinson was in 2010. About the dude whose like family died in 9/11, and it's called Remember Me. It's like super like dramatic. And
I kind of remember that shit. Yeah.
Either way, I guess she was in that film. She's been in the show Suits. It looks like she was in a 90210 reboot. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, ever since that, it seems like every goddamn year there's always some big event, whether it's a wedding or an Oprah interview or whatever, that even us here in America, so I can only imagine how annoying it is if you live in the UK, but even us in America are subjected to this goddamn circus about people that we don't give a fuck about, who frankly should probably be fucking guillotined. It's so annoying that this is a continuing.
Gavin is not calling for the execution of the royal family. YouTube algorithm. But
oh, now that you said it, now we're actually going to get tagged.
There we go. We're going to get tagged.
I was trying to use coded language and get around the algorithm, and now you made it explicit what I was calling for. But
now the cat's out of the bag. Goodbye, the Vanguard. But
yeah, and also just not just the fact that he was hired at the startup, but like you said, the nature of the startup itself. Again, bringing together world-class coaching, AI technology, and behavioral science experts to help people live more meaningful, vibrant lives with greater clarity, purpose, and passion. Like that sounds like something from a fucking Black Mirror episode or something. Yeah. Just everything. So yeah.
Well, but speaking of the royal family, there's more news about Prince Andrew's good old pal from back in the day, Billy Clinton. We've all known that Bill Clinton was fond and cared about young girls. He's joined forces with Kamala Harris to see that work through.
Yeah, absolutely. This one is so funny. One of the absolutely most hilarious stories of the day. Complete optic nightmare. Kamala Harris, Bill Clinton to hold talk on pandemic's impact on women. So yeah, Bill Clinton, noted expert on women, will be joining.
Clinton has his own impact on women that needs to be discussed in an open panel.
Yeah, honestly, that would be a much more interesting forum to view. Oh God, yeah. Can you imagine actually watching this shit? Watching Hillary Clinton, Stacey Abrams, Muriel Bowser, Howard, or whoever the hell, West
Wayne.
Like, can you imagine watching this garbage? Like just sitting through this event. I cannot imagine a less inspiring or entertaining thing to do. And it's hosted by the Clinton Global Initiative University. That sounds nice. That sounds wonderful.
Sounds real.
So this is just incredible. Again, Bill Clinton, completely disregarding his, Epstein connections and the very
obvious fact that he was definitely involved. Like it's so obvious in the media's complicity in the coverage of covering his ass for this. Like, oh my God, it's so obvious that he did so many horrible, unspeakable things. And obviously we won't extrapolate because we don't want to get our channel taken down, but you guys have your own thinkers, use that noodle.
And also, I mean, just completely disregarding that, which we definitely shouldn't do, but Bill Clinton gets remarkably off the hook for his, role in destroying labor in this country and for empowering corporate America and the terrible trade deals, which outsourced so many jobs and led to the rise of, neo-faux populist fascists.
Slashing the fuck out of welfare, which directly impacted women and children the most.
And the crime bill was also under him. So he's really one of the most odious presidents in, recent American history. Not that they all aren't, but he really is responsible for some of the worst, the way that this country is going, the direction of it. He's really, in a lot of ways, responsible for that. I think we were talking about the Thomas Frank quote the other day, where he said, Clinton basically finished what Reagan was not able to
he
do.
did everything that Reagan. Yeah, he was like a wolf in sheep's clothing, right? He did everything that the Republicans couldn't do under Reagan and Bush.
Yeah. And there's no reckoning with that fact. There was no reckoning with that fact when Hillary Clinton was running for president, and basically, the media was still lionizing the legacy of Bill Clinton as if it was not problematic. And there's been no reckoning with it at large in the Democratic Party. Obviously, again, like I said, in the age of Me Too and all that, there's a lot of issues to be had with Bill Clinton. But just from a policy perspective, he's one of the most cruel presidents when it comes to, again, workers' rights and the empowerment of our multinational corporate state, which is, obviously we all know where we are now in this country with, like you said, Main Street obliterated, small town America obliterated, Amazon, Walmart, a select handful of companies hoarding all the profits. In a large part, that's very much thanks to the efforts of Mr. Bill Clinton. So it's just crazy that he's not persona non grata in the Democratic Party, but I mean, he made it what they wanted him to. So I guess that's why they keep rewarding him and his wife Hillary. So yeah, this is just crazy, absolutely crazy and tone deaf. And they really should stop trotting this motherfucker out there.
Yeah, dude. I can't believe he's not fucking dead yet. Jesus fucking Christ. It's because he has good healthcare, unlike the rest of this fucking country. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, exactly. Like, all you need to know, right? Fuck it there. Like, you do not you do not hang out with, think about the people in your life. You know what I mean? And you're like, oh, he's a president. No. Dude, think about the people in your life, okay? If somebody is like sus, you got fucking, this dude is not like an idiot. He's not he's not a good person, obviously, but most people that become president aren't fucking dumb. Like George Bush is the exception, not the rule, right? Bill Clinton was actually a really savvy guy, and he was a really tremendous actor. But he wasn't dumb, and he knew what the fuck was going on with Jeffrey Epstein. I guarantee you. There's no way that he didn't, right? Like, they all fucking knew. But anyway.
Yeah. Not only did he know, he was probably participating in it, and the recipient of it. So again, that's not exactly proven, but I think it is proven that he was on the flight logs of Epstein
multiple times.
Lolita Express. So if you have to wonder why someone was on Lolita Express, then the answer is in the question. So again, it's crazy that this dude is even still someone that's being trotted out and acceptable in the mainstream. When again, so many people have truly, not so many people, but people genuinely have been quote unquote canceled for a lot less than what Bill Clinton is done and has been responsible for.
Oh, dude, and he deserves to be fucking finishing his life in jail, just like all of our other living presidents. So, I mean, let's just not even it's one of those fucking things, right? Because obviously Bill Clinton participated in so much disgusting behavior. All of our presidents have, right? And the thing is that what will finally wake up the public is not the fact that we've slaughtered 1 million people in Iraq. It's not the fact that insert however many children have been killed as casualties by our drone strikes, right? No, that shit doesn't even make a blip. That shit doesn't even fucking matter, right? So I'm not trying to say in any way that this other thing that he's done, allegedly been involved with, is anything other than just stomach churning, evil, fucking completely unconscionable behavior. But so is a bunch of the other shit that we know for a fact that him and everybody else that was fucking president did. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, great point. And if you haven't, make sure to read Listen Liberal by Thomas Strang.
Great book.
Yeah, he just brilliantly articulates the kind of the way Bill Clinton betrayed the American worker and the working class, with his presidency, and like I said, just empowered corporations in the media, like with the Telecommunications Act, like someone pointed out, but also with outsourcing, and the list goes on. The crime bill, empowering the prison industrial complex and the police. So he's really gross, and he's responsible for the direction that the Democratic Party has trended. I think there's a pretty solid argument that, at least domestically, because foreign policy, they're all send them all to the Hague or whatever. But there's an argument that I think Jimmy Carter was probably the last decent Democrat domestically. I remember even Ralph Nader, like when he was a policy advocate and a regulation advocate, he kind of was able to work. I learned this from watching that documentary about Ralph Nader. He was actually able to influence the policy and work with Jimmy Carter, a real ally he had in Carter in the White House. But post Reagan, there was no Democrat that even remotely found themselves amenable to the suggestions of regulation that were being suggested by advocates like Ralph Nader, which is why he ultimately decided that it was, worth it to destroy or run third party or destroy the Democrats in the process of trying, which some people think he did, in 2000. So, I think it's worth noting that Bill Clinton really does represent the beginning of the end for the Democratic Party.
I would just pop in and maybe push back a little bit, because it's true that from a consumer rights perspective, Jimmy Carter was obviously better, and Ralph Nader was able to work with him, but he was also the first president to come after the McGovern Commission, which was another thing that we talked to Thomas Frank about. And it seems as though he was also very responsible for the Democratic Party's pivot away from working class union politics. And that actually began under Carter, and he was going more for the liberal and intellectual vote, which I thought was interesting as well. And Noam Chomsky also busts Jimmy Carter's balls about that, because he came from the same coalition and thinking that another kind of I'm fucking this up, right? So I'll stop talking. But that I know that he was troubling for unions. And then that was, and that's kind of what teed up the room for Reagan to go. But yeah,
and I'm certainly not trying to defend everything that Carter did. He really did have some foreign policy fuck ups, as has every modern president. Obviously Noam Chomsky has made that point so well. But I do think it is accurate to say that Bill Clinton was the beginning of the end, truly, for the kind of quote unquote labor Democrat that some people still pretend that the Democrats are, which is just such a fantasy at this point. They're total tools of corporate America. So yeah, that's
also, I did not know that he decriminalized up to 1 ounce of weed. That's dope.
Yeah, I think I have heard that. And then it was Reagan that came in that quickly did away with that. And also Jimmy Carter did some interesting things. Am I crazy, or did he even suggest or try to implement like a solar panels on the White House, and then Reagan?
I know that his son smoked a joint on the roof of the White House with Willie Nelson, and that's how Willie Nelson famously smoked on the roof of the White House. But I don't know about the solar panel thing.
Yeah, no, actually he did.
That's crazy.
He unveiled 32 thermal solar panels, which were perched atop the roof of the West Wing of the White House. And again, they were ripped down by Reagan. So Carter's certainly not the best, and certainly worth criticizing. But there are certain things where he definitely stands.
At least
apart.
He was doing something right.
At least he was like somewhat forward thinking and not just a complete and utter tool of corporate America and all that. But certainly, again, not trying to celebrate someone who is responsible for a lot of bad stuff too.
Oh yeah, and for sure, and obviously, I guess he had no control over the deep. Or I mean, when I say he had no control, he exercised no control over the deep state and our foreign policy. Right? He kind of let them run wild. Right. But anyway, do we have one last story? Is that all? Are we at our end of the show?
I guess the only other thing I wanted to briefly mention was that another quick Bernie story, which is that it looks like he's actually going to be going down to Bessemer, Alabama, make the case to some youngsters that may be conflicted about the unionization efforts. Again, Bessemer is apparently a pretty strong union town, and a lot of the older generations of workers understand the necessity of having a union behind them. However, some of the younger workers that might be more susceptible to the propaganda, for example, that's being played on Twitch by Amazon, which shouldn't even be legal. It's insane that it is. Again, they might be more susceptible to that propaganda, and rightfully so, are genuinely fearful for their jobs in the event that unionization occurs. So Bernie will be traveling to Alabama on Friday to meet with these workers, many of which are still undecided. And God, I don't know why my screen just zoomed in so far, but and it's reported that these efforts, he's been urged to go down there, and he will be going down there. So I think that's cool that Bernie is showing up.
Yeah, and it also be a good like momentum booster for the people who are a little skittish, right? Helping them get across the line, being like, no, you can do this. You do have the support. Look, I'm Bernie Sanders. I'm here. I have a bunch of people who are with me that will support you if shit hits the fan. We're gonna, we've got your back, so to speak. So yeah, that's the kind of place where you love to see Bernie Sanders, right? In his, late stage of his career. Like if that's the only place we're gonna see Bernie, like he's still doing better than any of the other senators on Capitol Hill. So yeah, good to see that. This was a nice throwback. We got to talk about a lot of nice things with Bernie Sanders. It kind of feels like back in the day.
Exactly. And if you're wanting to be done, that's cool. The only other thing is that I know we wanted to talk about was the Mehdi Hassan clip, where you wanted to review that right now?
Yeah. No, I'm not like, I just was trying to think of what other shit we had going on. Yeah, this is interesting. And I did want to talk about this because I'm not sure if we've shit talked on Mehdi a ton on the show. But I was definitely extremely disappointed when he moved from The Intercept to MSNBC, but I'd also been extremely disappointed with the way that he'd been kind of, I don't want to say performing, but like I just wasn't that happy with the content that he was creating while he was at The Intercept for a while. No, we don't hate Bernie. We fucking love Bernie, but we have been critical for him at times. That's why I was just pointing that out for whoever's in the comment section. But anyway, as far as Mehdi goes, he seemed to have his mind kind of like rocked by the whole Trump phenomenon. He started like trying to like glamorize Bush, and he kind of like started doing a lot of weird stuff that I wasn't that into. And he kind of got behind Biden too enthusiastically for me. But we saw him move to Peacock, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Mehdi's just going to go over there and cash out and be a complete stenographer to power and all this shit. And to my surprise, and also I was happy to say, to see at least, he's provided a decent amount of pushback, by far the most I've ever seen from a modern host on MSNBC. Yeah. I guess Peacock is NBC. I don't know what the fuck technically it is.
Well, I think MSNBC and NBC are related. So, I mean, at this point, everything is basically just like 5 corporations anyway. So what does it matter? But yeah, this is Peacock, which I think is like the MSNBC adjacent streaming service or something. So, yeah, this was a surprisingly good answer from Mehdi. Again, not that he's definitely better than your average liberal on TV. There's no doubt about that. Again, it's more just been a little bit disappointing to see some of the statements he's made, especially in regards to taking part in the rehabilitation of George Bush's legacy and playing into that notion or mindset that, Trump is so bad that now we have to venerate war criminal George Bush and war criminals in general. They're all on MSNBC now, speaking of the platform. So yeah, again, it's not that he's like uniquely terrible or anything. It's just that he did have some really bad takes. And this is
quick shout out to Kamali. Also, I saw you were in the comment section. What's up, dude? We'll get you back.
Oh, hey, what's up, man? What's up, brother? I hope you're doing well, and we'd love to do another live stream with you soon. So appreciate the comment, dude. Anyway, this was a pretty good response from Mehdi, and I saw some people on Twitter pointing out that despite the fact that people, especially on the left, they find it very sus, and myself included, being platformed by MSNBC, automatically you're thinking, why would you ever want to be platformed by MSNBC? Why would you want to self-censor? Why would you not want to speak truth to the oligarchs and, try to advocate for communism or whatever the fuck? But there is some value to having people on these platforms that are, leftist, or that have the ability to articulate positions like Medicare for all and educate people and convince them as to the attributes of a universal healthcare, for example. So again, I wouldn't personally feel comfortable being on an MSNBC show just because I knew I would have to self-censor. But I don't necessarily begrudge someone who does want to go on MSNBC to make leftist points, because without that, then it really is just going to be a deluge of pro-corporate propaganda. So at least, breaking up the monotony is a good thing. And maybe, some boomer out there that doesn't know the truth about Medicare for all, that's been pickling their mind with Rachel Maddow for the last 10 years and doesn't have access to YouTube because they don't know how to type in a URL. Maybe it's a good thing for that person to hear Mehdi Hassan defend universal healthcare.
I think unquestionably it's a good thing for him, right? And obviously you and I would never want to be in the position where you are in the back of your mind thinking about how you're going to have to pacify yourself, or the fact that you can't hammer down on a person when they come and are giving you a line of bullshit, like, they'll like dodge your question twice and then you kind of have to like let them go. That's kind of the etiquette on cable news. Whereas like on a podcast, if somebody's like fucking not answering our question, we're gonna just keep asking it to them in a different way until they fucking acknowledge it, and then finally be like, dude, just answer my question, or why did you come on this podcast? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So I think it's very valuable to have somebody like Mehdi, who is very good at arguing, right? He's a great orator, I think. And that's why I liked when he was having good discussions on his show Deconstructed, which is now hosted by Ryan Grimm. I thought that he did a damn good job being a podcast host. And I would listen to him, and he did a damn good job. It was a 30-minute podcast, which I always thought was weird. I was like, dude, make it an hour. But you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I liked it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no doubt about it that his voice is beautiful and wonderful to listen to. I would happily listen to Mehdi Hasan narrate an audiobook, for example, or anything of that nature. So certainly the kind of voice you want to hear making these points. But
yeah, we can play the clip.
Yeah.
Questionable things. I want to talk about one of those. Today's the 11th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act. As you say, the rescue plan expands subsidies for ACA plans, making premiums much cheaper for many families. That's a good thing. But it could also spend an estimated $35 billion fully covering COBRA for around 2 million unemployed people for just 6 months. How is that a good use of that money? $35 billion subsidizing insurance companies for 6 months. Wouldn't that money be better invested towards building universal health care in this country?
Well, clearly you have health insurance right now. But the question is, you ought to pose that to people who have lost their job through no fault of their own, that has lost their health insurance, and they need a bridge so that they stay with insurance, so that they can get that checkup and detect cancer early. It's very easy for people to make judgment calls when they're not in other people's shoes, and I won't do that. I won't put a price on lives. I won't put a price on...
Hold on.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Hold on, with respect.
Hold on, wait.
Okay.
No, but I'm not going to put a price tag on a woman finding out that she has early stages of breast cancer so that we can beat it. I mean, look, did we rise to the moment? Yes. Did we spend $1.9 trillion? We did. You know why? Because there was $1.9 trillion worth of problems in this country that we were trying to fix.
Yes. So, with respect, I just need to push back a little bit. I'm in favor of you spending $1.9 trillion. I'd have gone higher. I'm very happy that you're spending lots of money. And as for the money on healthcare, it's not that I don't want you to spend $35 billion on healthcare. I'm in favor of universal healthcare. And when you say there's no price tag on healthcare, the problem is the president, Joe Biden, told us there is. He says we can't afford Medicare for all. I'm saying if you can afford $35 billion to give to COBRA, which is a very inefficient, overpriced way of giving people healthcare, why not spend that money on a universal healthcare system that helps everyone, not just insurance companies?
Well, remember, this is a response to a pandemic. If we didn't have COVID-19, you wouldn't see us doing that COBRA appropriation. So remember, we're probably saying close to the same thing, but remember, this is in response to people losing their jobs through no fault of their own. And if you don't have COVID-19 out there, people are not losing their jobs in record numbers through no fault of their own. And look,
fair point.
You mentioned what's coming next.
As you mentioned, it's a temporary...
But it's crazy. See, it's like, see, if this was a podcast, right? Like, we would be coming for that dude's fucking ass right now. Like, you know what I mean? There's no way out of that to be like, no, you're not. You're saying something completely different than we are. We're saying we should spend this money more efficiently so we can cover everybody. And you're saying, no, we're going to enrich a bunch of corporations and really ineffectively cover 2 million people for 6 months.
Yeah, like when you're debating someone, this is what you hope your opponent does. Like, like just open the door for you to utterly obliterate and expose their misunderstanding and ignorance about the situation, which they claim to be an authority on. And that's exactly what happened. Well, that's not exactly what happened because, Mehdi is polite and it's on MSNBC. But this guy did totally open the door to, being just completely exposing himself as an ignoramus on this subject. Again, responding to Mehdi's, question by saying, well, you must have health insurance. So that's why you're, and Mehdi's like, wait, what? I'm saying more people everyone should have health insurance, not just me. So it's pretty crazy. And again, Mehdi Hassan is someone who's actually had some pretty dumb and pretty bad takes, again, venerating the legacy of George Bush. So I haven't really been on this guy's like side for a while. I kind of thought he was a tool, but I see a clip like this and I'm like, you can't deny that he's making a solid argument. He's probably changing some minds here, and that's a good thing. And again, I don't want to tear down someone who is, doing the work to further education about a policy as necessary as Medicare for all.
Yeah, and I think he does a great thing being on MSNBC, because you're right. He plays the game in a way that like I wouldn't. Like he said, like he probably letting this guy go without hammering him to the fucking table, and then obviously like getting reprimanded by your boss and having that guy say fuck you, I'm never going on that show again, which is why they don't let you do that, even though he deserves it. But you're right, because I've heard Mehdi Hassan being like, I would nationalize half the industries in this country overnight, like offhandedly in an interview when he was working for the Intercept. If he says that kind of shit on air at MSNBC and gets away with it, more fucking power to him, man. People need to know that that's an option, that's a line of thinking, that he's like, wait, we have a nationalized healthcare system in England, where I think he's from, right? He has a thick British accent. He'd be like, works, way better than it does for you guys here. And don't get me wrong, it has problems, and the British people would like to solve them. But this is some, it kind of deals with that like fluke argument that everybody likes to throw up. It's like, I have the friend from Canada who had to come to America to get their shit taken care of, right? And it's like, okay, were they rich? They probably were rich. They definitely were. And then it's like, he made an amazing point the other day too, just to give him another. This is 2 in a row for Mehdi, so I want to give him a shout out. There was I can't remember who the Biden official was. It was somebody from the Biden administration was on his show, and he was hammering them about their policy towards MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, the Prince of Saudi Arabia. And the guy's like, oh, it's been the long-standing policy of the United States not to impose sanctions on heads of state. And he's like, hold on, excuse me, hold on, hello, excuse me, hello. He's not a head of state, but he's not a head of state. He's not. And then the guy's like, well, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, but he's not a head of state. So he's what you're saying is not making that. And then finally he lets the guy go again, weasel out. But so it's like, he's there to make oh, this guy's a fucking fraud. But you just don't have the catching them all the way, because you have to play that bullshit with legacy media. But at the end of the day, the more I think about it, like, that's a great home for a guy like Mehdi. If he can put up with that bullshit and get away with that, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the axe in like 6 months because he goes off on somebody. But he keeps acting like this, right? They're not going to let him stay around.
Yeah, we were joking around before the show about how he can't. As soon as he touches the MIC, then it's time. Your time's up, bro. You're done. Get out. That's what MSNBC is pretty famous for doing at this point. But again, I don't begrudge him for going on a bigger platform to make those kind of points. So again, regardless of my disagreements with Mehdi Hassan, of which I do have a lot, I do think it's worth shouting out the fact that he defended Medicare for all in the way that not enough people do. He clearly, the people do, but you don't see enough on TV is what I'm trying to say. Again, just because those people aren't platformed in the first place, but it's good that he was able to break the monotony of corporate propaganda on MSNBC and actually speak some truth about our broken and corporatized, for-profit healthcare system. Very necessary education, especially on a platform like MSNBC or Peacock. I don't know if Peacock is being watched by the same people that watch MSNBC, because basically, if you guys aren't familiar, MSNBC is basically watched by people that don't really understand how to access news on
it actually airs on MSNBC Sundays at 7 Central.
Okay, because what I was saying, I'm trying to say this in a sensitive way, but the main audience for MSNBC is truly and not just MSNBC, but Fox News. They're people that not they don't want to access independent media or for example YouTube shows like ours. It's more that they don't really understand that there's an alternative to cable news. That's what they've been, that's what they've been watching for so long. That's the main part of their media diet, and anything else they think is fake news or whatever. So again, that's not their fault. American propaganda is unrelentless and just so oppressive. But that is the reality, and it's a good thing when someone like Mehdi Hassan is able to make that point, which is not being made enough on that platform. So that's a long-winded way of saying, good job, Mehdi Hassan. Keep it up, bro.
Yeah, keep using the platform as best as you can to pierce the bubble. But with that, I think we're done with the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for everyone that watched. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. We got a lot of exciting content coming up. In fact, I might as well first of all, shout out to the patrons, but I think it's also a decent time to make an announcement. The fact that this Sunday, actually, we're going to be doing a debate on our channel.
Yes.
Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the gun control debate is back in the public discourse in a big way, thanks to recent mass shootings. This is a topic that we can never seem to stop talking about in America because of the persistence of gun violence. And because of that fact, we thought it would be a good idea to platform a bit of a debate, a bit of an exchange of ideas between two people that we both respect, but think could have a really good discussion, again, moderated by Zach and us. And that's Mr. Steve Cox, independent California candidate who's very pro-gun and very, pro a robust Second Amendment, and Mr. Ben Burgess, who is more going to be arguing in favor of common sense gun reform. So this should be a really, really fascinating discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Really looking forward to this. Two guys, like we said, we both got a lot of respect for Ben Burgess, even though we've never had him on the show before. So going to be exciting to speak with him. And, I've had Steve on the show twice, so he's a good guy. And we're hoping that we can have a kind of a good faith conversation about this and, have a good thoughtful discussion about this so that we can kind of find some common ground and maybe get some improvements.
Yeah. Exactly. And these are people who I think both, the cases they're going to be making, I think they're both very good faith arguments. Again, despite the disagreements that Zach might have with either opinion voiced, these people both are coming from a real place. And I really look forward to just hearing this exchange myself, because, this is an issue that I've gone back and forth on a lot, in my own political experiences. I have, fairly strong opinions, I guess, but there are certain issues that I think are up for debate when it comes to this conversation. And that's, again, why we're platforming this debate. So make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell if you have not already. You're not going to want to miss that. And it will be on this Sunday, at around, I think I said like 3 p.m.
Yeah,
Central.
I think it's 3 p.m. Central. That's what I thought too. Yeah, we'll put out an official alert for you guys, because Gavin and I don't have it in front of us right now, but you'll get a notification when you smash that bell, so that get into my dude bro voice. Smash that button, destroy it. Yeah, no. But yeah, thanks for everybody that listened. We really appreciate the audience and the engagement and all that kind of shit. So thanks for tuning in, guys.